In 2004, 12 million people paid $15 a month to live in a world that didn't exist. They scheduled their lives around raid times. They called in sick to work. Some of them died at their keyboards, and their characters kept standing there, waiting. World of Warcraft wasn't a game. It was a religion. And Blizzard was the church. The company had a rule, 3 words. Ready when it's ready. They delayed games for years. They canceled projects that weren't perfect. Then, in 2008, Blizzard merged with a company whose CEO told investors the goal was to take all the fun out of making video games. He wasn't joking. He was explaining his philosophy to people who owned his stock. $18.9 billion. That was the deal. You know what happened next. The talent exodus. The lawsuits. Microsoft paying $69 billion to buy whatever was left. But here's what everyone gets wrong. This wasn't a hostile takeover. The merger made perfect financial sense. Every analyst approved. That's the real horror. What killed Blizzard wasn't malice. It was organizational gravity. 2 incompatible philosophies in the same building, waiting to see which one survives. Systems eat culture, always. Blizzard believed creative work requires creative conditions. Quality creates profit. Ready when it's ready. They delayed Diablo 2 for 3 years. They scrapped StarCraft entirely and rebuilt it from scratch. They let teams fail expensively, rather than ship something mediocre. Bobby Kotick believed business is business. His turnaround of Activision from near bankruptcy was legendary in the industry. His methods were explicit. If a game doesn't have the potential to be exploited on every possible platform every year, we have no interest in it. The word exploited. Most executives would soften that. Kotick used it deliberately. He wanted investors to understand exactly how Activision thought about games, not creative works. Assets to be maximized. He meant it. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater released annually until the market collapsed. The franchise went from beloved to exhausted in under a decade. Guitar Hero released multiple titles per year until players couldn't distinguish between them. The rhythm game category that Activision helped create essentially died from overexposure. Call of Duty became an annualized franchise with alternating studios. Infinity Ward 1 year, Treyarch the next. Neither team had time for genuine innovation, but the releases kept coming, and the money kept flowing. Both philosophies worked. Blizzard built devotion. Activision built profits. The merger promised both. The financial logic was sound. Activision had console franchises with predictable annual releases. Blizzard had PC franchises with subscription revenue. World of Warcraft alone generated over $2 billion annually. 12 million subscribers times $15 monthly. Predictable, recurring, beautiful on a spreadsheet. Together, the companies could diversify risk. A bad year for console shooters could be offset by stable subscription income. A bad year for MMOs could be offset by Call of Duty. Analysts loved it. The combined company became the largest pure-play game publisher in the Western world. Mergers always promise that both cultures will be preserved. It's almost never true. In December 2008, the merger closed. Blizzard president Mike Morhaime became the buffer. His job was to protect Blizzard's culture from Activision's systems. For a while, it worked. Blizzard maintained separate operations, separate HR, separate marketing, separate development philosophy. They reported to Activision on financials, but ran themselves on everything else. Morhaime used Blizzard's profits as leverage. As long as World of Warcraft kept generating billions, he could argue that the culture producing those results should be left alone. But leverage only works when you're winning. Then came Project Titan. Blizzard had been developing a new MMO since 2007. Their next World of Warcraft. The game that would define the next decade of online gaming. The team was massive. Over 100 developers at its peak. They built entire systems, entire worlds. They iterated for years. In 2013, they looked at what they had and rebooted it. Started over. In 2014, they looked again and canceled it entirely. 7 years. $80 million. Gone. Some of Titan's pieces became Overwatch. But the project itself was a monument to ready when it's ready. The willingness to kill something that wasn't working rather than ship something mediocre. Under the old Blizzard, Titan would have been absorbed as a cost of doing business. Under Activision's ownership, it became ammunition, evidence that Blizzard couldn't be trusted with unlimited time and money. Corporate pressure intensified. The questions changed. Why does development take so long? Why can't you commit to ship dates? Why should we fund open-ended exploration when Call of Duty ships every November? Morhaime held on for 4 more years, fighting the defensive battle every quarter, protecting his teams from the systems that wanted to systematize them. Then he left. After 27 years with the company he co-founded. Burned out, he told people privately. The last defender of the old philosophy had run out of energy. Within months, Blizzard announced it would increase its release cadence. More frequent premium releases. The language of Philosophy B, now coming from Blizzard leadership. The human cost arrived in February 2019. Activision Blizzard announced record revenue. Best year in company history. 800 people were laid off the same announcement. Not developers. Customer service, quality assurance, community teams, esports support. Exactly the roles that don't show up in productivity metrics, but make games feel supported. The layoffs hit Blizzard hardest. The company that prided itself on treating employees like family was now cutting them to boost margins on a record profit year. Employees learned they were fired in parking lots, crying, hugging each other. Security escorted them out, while their former colleagues watched from office windows. Some had contributed directly to those record profits. Their reward was a severance package and a box for their belongings. Meanwhile, the announcement also revealed that the new CFO would receive $15 million in compensation. Joining a company, $15 million. Same announcement as 800 layoffs. The optics were catastrophic, but the logic was pure Philosophy B. Reduce costs. Reward executives who reduce costs. The people being cut weren't generating measurable value. The CFO would. That quarter, Blizzard employees began circulating internal documents about wages, screenshots of pay stubs, comparisons to local cost of living. Customer service staff shared how they skipped meals to afford rent. In Irvine, California, where median household income exceeds $80,000, some Blizzard employees made under $40,000. Bobby Kotick earned $40 million that year, 1,000 times what some of his employees made. Record profits, mass layoffs, starving employees, executive windfalls. These weren't contradictions. They were the system working as designed. The talent started leaving, not being fired, choosing to go. Jeff Kaplan, 19 years at Blizzard, director of Overwatch, the company's biggest new franchise in a decade. Gone in 2021, with no announcement of where he was going. Just gone. Chris Metzen, voice of Warcraft lore for 23 years. The guy who created Thrall, who shaped the entire mythology of Blizzard's worlds. Gone. Ben Brode, the face of Hearthstone, the guy whose laugh became a meme because players loved him so much. He left to start his own studio. Luis Barriga, game director of Diablo 4. Jesse McCree, senior designer with a character named after him. Jesse Meshuk, head of HR, all gone. They went to Dreamhaven, the studio Mike Morhaime founded after leaving, to Frost Giant, making RTS games, to Second Dinner, making card games, to Magic Soup Games, to Notorious Studios, to a dozen other small companies. Gaming media started calling it Blizzard in exile. The people who actually made the games were now making games somewhere else. What remained at Blizzard was the brand, the systems, and whoever was willing to work within them. Then came the 2021 lawsuit. The California Department of Fair Employment and Housing filed suit alleging years of harassment and discrimination. 2 years of investigation, hundreds of interviews. What they found was devastating. The lawsuit described a frat boy culture. Women groped at company events. Female employees passed around at parties like objects. A woman who killed herself on a business trip after her male supervisor brought sex toys and lubricant. Executives who knew and did nothing. The details were specific. Names were named. The gaming industry had seen harassment scandals before, but nothing at this scale from a company this prominent. Blizzard's response made it worse. Initial statements attacked the lawsuit's credibility. The head of HR, who had been there for years while this allegedly happened, issued defensive statements. Employees staged walkouts. More allegations emerged. The HR head resigned, then more executives. The lawsuit wasn't directly caused by the merger, but the conditions that let misconduct persist for years. A culture that prioritized financial results over employee welfare, that protected high performers regardless of behavior, that had gutted HR and community functions in pursuit of margins. Those conditions had grown steadily worse since 2008. By 2022, Microsoft announced its acquisition, $69 billion, the largest gaming acquisition in history. Bobby Kotick would leave with somewhere between $375 and $500 million. The exact number depends on how you count stock options and bonuses. Either way, the CEO who promised to take the fun out of making games would exit as one of the richest executives in entertainment history. The system rewarded him. By every metric Activision measured, he had succeeded. Microsoft promised autonomy for Blizzard. They always do. The pattern is consistent. The acquirer promises independence. The acquired entity delivers results. Results falter. Systems tighten. Culture erodes. Talent leaves. Understanding this pattern doesn't prevent it. The incentives are too strong. The acquirer genuinely believes they'll preserve what they're buying. The acquired entity genuinely believes they can maintain independence. Both sides underestimate organizational gravity. But understanding it explains what happened. Why Blizzard stopped feeling like Blizzard. Why the games feel polished but not beloved. Why every new release is greeted with skepticism from the players who used to pre-order everything with the logo on it. The philosophy that created those franchises lives now in exile. In smaller studios founded by people who remember what Blizzard used to be, who still believe that ready when it's ready can work if you can find the right conditions. Dreamhaven, Frost Giant, Second Dinner, Notorious, Magic Soup. They're not competing with Blizzard on budgets. They can't. They're competing on philosophy. They're betting that players can still tell the difference between a product and a labor of love. Maybe they're right. Maybe Microsoft will create more autonomy than Activision did. Maybe the pattern can be broken. Or maybe systems always win eventually. Maybe creative culture can only exist in the gaps, temporarily, before the systems notice and absorb it. Either way, the lesson is clear. When two philosophies meet, the one that controls resources will prevail. The creative spirit that builds something special is different from the institutional power that acquires it. Blizzard made magic. Activision made money. The merger promised both. It delivered one. Systems eat culture. And in the end, systems are always hungry.